Welcome, thrice-failed real estate developers, to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Reviews from the Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And tonight, we return to Metropolis.
I see what you did
working
there.
backwards from last week, but this week we are going to the first kick at the can of trying to bring Superman back to the cinema with 2006's Superman Returns.
Which, if anything, is basically a big old love letter to Richard Donner's Superman and, to a lesser extent, Superman 2.
Right. Yeah. And if you, I texted Mike this while I was watching it. And I'm like, Superman Returns is kind of like if you ordered the Donner Superman movies from Wish.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
No. It's like it could have been a Donner movie, but I think we just need to start going into this. And I'm gonna bring us back to our age-old question. What didn't work? We'll start positive, Mike. What worked with Superman Returns?
Well, if you think about, Man of Steel was a Superman movie that didn't quite get the message that it's supposed to be about Superman, and Superman's supposed to be, hopeful. This movie got the fucking message.
Yeah. This movie gets Superman from the pre-cynical age.
Yeah.
Even though he kind of comes into the story at a cynical time. Why the world doesn't need Superman.
Right. But I mean, for me, the scene where he saves the plane, like the Superman's kind of intro scene, it is a better scene than anything in Man of Steel.
Yes, and sadly, with Man of Steel, Superman Returns, it really is all downhill from here. Because I remember seeing this in the movie theater and having tears in my eyes. So happy. It's like, I think they did it.
Yeah.
I legitimately think they did it.
I mean, when he's just standing in the doorway of the plane, just looking out, and the entire stadium is cheering for him.
Yep.
I'm like, that is Superman. That is what Man of Steel lacked. It didn't have that moment of hope. It was just all grim and pastel shades. This was bright, vibrant, happy.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, though, is that was a half hour into a 2.5 hour long movie.
Yeah.
Why are you starting on such a high point? And then everything else is down below. But no, I appreciated that the suit was more vibrant.
You know what? I will say there was one other scene that I really, really loved.
Yeah.
Bullet to the eye.
Yeah, and that was weird. I feel like if these guys were robbing, someplace and getting away with it, why would you set up a hydraulic gun like that?
That was kind of odd to have that there, but I was like, the setup may have, lacked some issues, but the payoff I thought was really awesome, because just seeing it and then just walk up King and just them both watching the bullet fall, and just that smile on Brandon Routh's face.
Yeah, but after 19 years of not having a Superman movie, at that point, special effects obviously had changed, so you could actually see it more than just like that. Having a hail of automatic bullets just hitting the suit, and then the one in the eye, and that was a really cool effect, and essentially is all part of the same. It's almost part of that same scene. It's still part of Act 1.
Yeah. Another positive of this, Brandon Routh. I thought he was magnificent as Superman.
I feel like they definitely did a good job of finding somebody who could embody without copying Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. And actually, from what I hear, I know Dana Reeves, his widow, died in 2006, the same year this movie came out.
Yeah.
But when they cast Brandon Routh, I guess she gave him her kind of approval. She
Yes.
actually, I think, if I recall correctly, she even saw some like mannerisms that he was doing naturally that she remembered seeing in Chris.
Yeah. And I don't fault Brandon Routh for any of
No.
the issues with this movie. He is blameless. He is completely blameless in this. And
much like Henry Cavill, I don't really blame him for the issues we had with.
right,
he did the best he could with what he was given. Same here.
right. But with Henry Cavill, Henry Cavill is beefy and handsome and a nerd, and it allowed him to parlay his career a lot better than Brandon Routh, who, he does still work. He was doing Chuck. He's doing, he was part of the Arrowverse.
Yep. He was the Atom.
Yeah, he was the Atom. And I know his Superman came back in like some thing.
Yeah, they did a massive crossover and they brought him
the
back.
CW, but I do feel like his career was greatly affected by the failure of this movie. And make no mistake, this movie did not do well. Based on his expectations, you can pull up the numbers. Based on his expectations in 2006. Now, keep in mind, Ralph was great in Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, no, he was. He
was the vegan.
He was in there. He was the vegan, right?
With superpowers, yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, so I keep forgetting he was in there.
Ooh.
What's
I
the
just saw the end of the numbers. On a budget of $223 million, it pulled in a box office of $391.
$391, is that worldwide?
Yes.
That is terrible.
Yeah, that is not making its money back. It's more than the budget, but there's a lot more money that goes into a movie than just that.
Yep, I still stand by 2.5 to 3 times the production budget is what you need to actually pull a profit, and this was not. And keep in mind too, this was the summer of weak superhero movies. This was the same summer as X3.
Yeah.
And also starring James Marsden.
In a blink and you miss him.
Quite literally, yeah. In terms of what else worked with this movie, I thought Brandon Routh did a fantastic job. It feels weird. It kills me to say this.
I know what you're going to say, and I agree.
I really thought Kevin Spacey made a meal out of this, out of playing Lex Luthor.
Yeah. It feels dirty to say it.
Well, in hindsight, yes. And quite honestly, I don't think I appreciated it that much when it did come out. This movie has always been an also-ran in terms of where I would stack Superman movies. But going back and watching it now, especially kind of like having a guard how I feel about Kevin Spacey, because realistically, Kevin Spacey is, throughout the 90s and the 2000s was one of my favorite actors. And he's incredibly problematic. And I will, but I will still watch LA Confidential. I'll still watch The Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects. But Usual Suspects has the same issue that this movie, where it's got Kevin Spacey and Bryan
Singer. Yeah. So I feel like going back and watching it, he's not doing Hackman.
No.
But I feel like what he was doing worked really, really well, especially because you can just tell he is a jerk.
Yeah.
He is an absolute jerk, and just the fact that he's, one of the most brilliant criminal minds in the world, he's still a jerk.
Yeah.
But the subtle things, like there's that scene when worst mom in the world, Lois Lane, takes her son onto the mysterious yacht, and then they're trying to escape, and he just comes out in his bathrobe and he's brushing his teeth. And the look on his face is, Lois Lane. But it's just like, it was just such a subtle drop. and I really enjoyed. I enjoyed him in that, and on the I also enjoyed Parker Posey in this. I felt like she did a very good job in the Tessmacher role. I don't know why they couldn't have just made her Miss Tessmacher, but
well, I think if they had Miss Tessmacher, then they probably would have. Everyone would have been asking, "Oh, where's Otis?"
Where's Otis?
Yeah,
Otis is still in jail because remember he was abandoned in Superman 2.
Yeah, he was.
Because after Superman 2, the other two movies don't exist because of Superman Returns.
Right.
And I've used Superman Returns as a verb to describe movies that are are scrubbed from the continuity.
But you know what? Wiping out Superman 3 and Superman 4 is nothing but a boon for humanity.
No, exactly. So, I mean, those were the performances I genuinely enjoyed.
Yeah.
Everybody else in this movie, though, and I feel bad saying that about Frank Langella, but Frank Langella just did not bring the energy that was it Jackie Coogan? No, it wasn't Jackie Coogan. Yeah.
Actually, I want to say it was Jackie Coogan.
Jackie Cooper. It was Jackie Cooper.
Yes.
Jackie Coogan was the original Uncle Fester.
Yes.
Jackie Cooper was such a better Perry White.
He was.
And I'll admit, even I liked Lawrence Fishburne better, even though Lawrence Fishburne's Perry White had no idea how newspapers work.
No.
But yeah, it was just like, okay, we need an old actor to just be the Great Caesar's ghost guy. Jimmy Olsen was more annoying, I think, than Doug McClure was.
I didn't have a problem with Sam Huntington. He didn't like wow me, but he didn't detract from me. I was all right with him.
I'm just curious, at what point does Jimmy Olsen grow up? Or is he always just going to be Superman's pal? I am 45 years old, Superman's pal.
I think given that this movie was just a love letter to the Donner ones, they wanted to keep the same. Golly gee, Superman.
Yeah. This is also the second Superman movie. This and Man of Steel, where I actually saw Superman drink, and not in a bad, nicotine and tar created kryptonite, state. It's like, okay, what is the point? He must really like the taste of beer, especially Budweiser, because first of all, he's Superman. He shouldn't be able to get drunk. It's like, I just do this just to fit in. Is this? But in Man of Steel, he's drinking it at home. It's like, your mother knows you're Superman, right? But that the length of this movie,
it is far too long for what it is.
The thing is that it could have just. I feel like the last 20 minutes were tacked on solely to prove that yes, in fact, the world does need Superman, as evidenced by the fact that he falls to Earth and has to stay in a hospital, and people have to kind of evaluate their feelings towards Superman, even though he did save the city not 45 minutes before.
Save the city, and by getting rid of that landmass, he saved pretty much most of the world.
I did find it funny though when when all the stuff is blowing up around Metropolis, and he catches the globe of the Daily Planet, and he just lowers it down on that car, and I'm like, Superman is a super dick.
I mean, it wasn't that nice of a car. Come on.
No, the cars looked like they came right out of the Donner movies.
Yeah, they did.
And that's sorry.
No, Frank Langella, I'm not huge on. I also, as much as I love seeing James Marsden pop up, like especially my favorite role of his is still Enchanted.
Okay.
Because he just played that smarmy Prince Charming so great, but I texted this to Andy because I know Andy's big line about Little Mermaid is you can't spell generic without Eric.
Yep.
And I just texted Andy, yeah, James Marsden really should be named Eric Marsden because you can't spell it generic without Eric. And
so, yeah, he is.
He's
it's funny because his great roles are, I feel like they are too few and far between.
Yeah.
And generally I don't mind him. He shows up and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's James Marsden. He was in Westworld, and he was really good in Westworld.
Yeah, I like him. It's just like in this one and in the X-Men movies, he's so bland and just milquetoast. You can't like him.
Yeah, well, especially because the way that they just directly went to the Claremont X-Men movies and said, this is what Cyclops is. He's dull, he's boring, and of course Jean's looking at Bone Logan. But I feel like my biggest complaint about this movie is that it slaps you upside the head in so many instances that this is part of the Donner continuity. We've called it a love letter, and I feel like it's a love letter, and it's a detriment because it can't be. It's never allowed to be its own movie.
Yeah,
it has to follow. It has to follow this slavish way of bringing Superman to a new, to a new audience, to people who hadn't seen a Superman movie, because there hadn't been a Superman movie in 19 years, and that movie was Quest for Peace, and that movie was fucking awful.
Yeah, and it was so weird that, like, for a movie that was relying on the original Superman movie to do all the heavy lifting for it, this movie still did a lot of heavy lifting as far as like establishing the backstory and all that. It's like, dude, you're relying on a movie that's like 30 years past to do all the backstory. Why are you rehashing all the backstory?
No reason other than because this had to have been, and I'm sure it didn't escape anybody's mind, that this had to have been somebody's first Superman movie.
Yeah. Also,
and yeah,
you think there'd be better security in the Fortress of Solitude. It's a Fortress of Solitude, which means it's a place. It's a fortified area where you can go to be alone, and yet they just walk in. There's no security. Just, hey, there's the open door. Let's walk in.
Yep, let's walk in. Not only that, but with the crystals and all that. Lex should have. There's no reason he should have had any access to those crystals at all. Where are the polar bears and robot guards that John Peters told us that we were going to get in this movie?
Yeah, and at the very least, it should have been keyed code to like Kryptonian DNA.
Don't get me started on the Kryptonian DNA. That was the last MacGuffin in Man of Steel.
Well, no, but they could have used it here.
It just there's a lot about this movie that just makes zero sense.
Yeah. And it is really boring. That third act is just so boring.
Yes, you're right, because it tries to do a lot of its own heavy lifting, and it's devoted to this. It's a slog in terms of pacing, and generally, I have enjoyed some of Bryan Singer's movies. For the most part, like his X-Men movies. I love The Usual Suspects.
The Usual Suspects is still in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. If
you've never seen Apt Pupil is a fantastic movie with a criminally underrated Ian McKellen. I mean, even though I know he got directing credit for Bohemian Rhapsody, that movie's terrible, and
yeah, well, he didn't do a whole lot of directing on Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, in fact, he didn't. In fact, the guy who did do all the directing for Bohemian Rhapsody was the guy who directed Rocket Man, which is an infinitely better movie. So it's just one of these things that I just feel like, because it wasn't allowing itself to be its own movie, it suffered horribly because of it.
Yeah.
People, yes, I agree. I find it to be very, very chilling. But all right, so the other kind of thing that really stuck out to me was the music. It
They knew how to use the Williams score, the Williams theme. I will give them.
Yes, they knew how to use the Williams score, the theme rather, but they didn't. There was not one point in this movie where it deserved to or earned the right to use it, especially when it came to the music, because John Ottman, I know he can do things I can't do because I'm not a musician, but in terms of composers, he's really a mid composer. He's also an film editor too. I just looked it up. He was actually won an Oscar for editing Bohemian Rhapsody, which is one of the most shoddily edited movies I've ever seen.
What, didn't John Ottman also did the score to X-Men movies, right?
Yes.
And I actually thought those scores were really good.
They weren't bad. The themes were better than most. Yeah. But with this movie, it's like you were given the blueprint already. You've got your Kryptonian DNA, if you will, with the Williams theme. Build your score around that. Make it sound Williams-ish. And instead they sound like parents that don't talk to each other anymore. Yeah, because the theme would come up, it's like, yeah, and then it's just like this just typical boring sad blockbuster music that there wasn't anything about it that stood out that was special, and utilizing the Williams theme as a crutch was really
much like their slavish devotion to the Donner movies was a detriment. I think using the Williams score, the Williams theme, was also kind of a detriment because it was like, oh wow, that was such a great score. Like, oh, this isn't the same score.
No,
this isn't as good as that score was.
They don't fit, and if you actually find the Ottman score and listen to it in comparison to the Williams theme, it just seems like it doesn't feel like they're coming from the same movie.
Yeah, and like by putting that Williams theme in there, it makes it like, especially me, who like I generally don't pay attention to the score all that much.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that theme, I'm like, oh, now I got to listen to the score. It's like, oh, they're just using that theme, and this isn't the rest of the score, and it kind of tuned me into the score, and then the score was not what I was hoping for.
Yeah. Exactly, and I'm one of those people. If you've got Superman appearing in your movie, you use the Williams theme, and I know that's kind of like the big they still haven't seen it yet because I think it'll be on HBO next month. But Black Adam, they used the Williams theme, and some dudes lost their goddamn minds that they didn't use the Zimmer theme, and the Zimmer theme is like, it's fine.
Yeah,
can't hum it.
Yeah,
I legitimately couldn't recognize it if you played it amongst other superhero themes. Versus, it's almost like the Williams theme, and this is something that Richard Donner himself said. The theme says the name in the horns.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you've got that Superman, and it's just like,
yeah,
it's amazing, and makes me want to go back and watch Superman the movie again, which my kids won't sit and watch because it's a long 70s movie.
Actually, after I finished Superman Returns, I actually watched some episodes of the Superman the Animated Series. Which is really, everyone remembers Batman the Animated Series. Superman the Animated Series was really, really solid as well.
Yeah. So, all in all, you said at the top of the show today that this is a better Superman movie. It's not as good of an action movie as Man of Steel is, but it's a better Superman story.
Yeah, and for me, between like this one and Man of Steel, they're both trying to tell a Superman movie. This one got the fucking memo. Man of Steel, it was like, hey, let's do a Superman movie, but let's take all elements of hope and joy and optimism out of it.
And wring them out like a damp sponge.
Then that is no longer a Superman movie, my friend.
Yeah, and so and it's one of those things too. I know that they you always hear the rumors of what would have happened if this had done better, if they had greenlit a sequel to this.
Yeah.
Kept Ralph in there. Were we going to get Brainiac? Were we going to get, we wouldn't have gotten Zod again because, technically speaking, Zod was defeated by that giant S-shaped fruit roll-up and in Superman 2.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's the thing too, because for this movie, did all the heavy lifting. The sequel could have been something really interesting, especially given how that now we know Superman's got a kid.
oh my God! All right, we didn't even address that.
No.
All right, so first of all, I want to establish the fact that in this movie's continuity, Lois still does not know that Clark is Superman. So, meaning she had sex with Superman.
Well, if you're taking that Superman 2 was part of the continuity, it did have sex in Superman 2.
Oh, are you saying that she got pregnant in Superman 2?
Yeah.
And then he gave her the kiss of roofiedom, and then and then just flew off to crib, and she survived. We get to all the Kevin Smith debates at this point.
And what's odd is I actually have the novelization of Superman Returns. I got it, I think, before I'd seen this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it, and I don't think it actually mentions that he's. I think they completely omit that from the book, because they wanted it to be a surprise for the movie.
It felt weird. Again, Lois was a terrible mother for really just bringing Jason all over the place with her. There was no payoff. What I did appreciate though is that, Superman was able to give the same speech that Jor-El gave to him. The father becomes the son. I really appreciated that, and I also appreciated the fact that I could finally legally use Marlon Brando in this because he was dead and couldn't sue. That was easy. Jeez, I wish we had thought about this for Superman 2. Susanna York, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah.
So it's, it was interesting. It's, I don't know. It's just like, I've never had I'll just gonna put it this way, in terms of like how I would grade this, I've never had a fully formed opinion about this movie because I don't feel like I can. I don't feel like an actual opinion can crystallize about this movie because I don't love it, nor do I hate it. It's not even in the middle. It's just like this thing.
It's in the Phantom Zone.
Yes, exactly. And the funky disco Phantom Zone, too. Not that penis ship thing that they were doing in Man of Steel. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, so you know what? Going back and rewatching this, I think I actually did enjoy it more than I did the last time I'd seen it, which was quite a while ago.
It's in the box of steel, so I know we both have that, right?
Oh yeah, yep. I guess watching it after Man of Steel, it kind of actually gave me a little bit more of appreciation for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely do like it more than Man of Steel. I like it more than I remember liking it. It's still not a great movie. It is way too long. I can't tell you how many times I paused it. I'm like, there's still 40 minutes left? What the fuck?
I feel that way about most movies now. I'm getting old.
Yeah, but for me, there was more payoff than I remember there being, so I was all right with it.
Yeah. I'm just, again, I'm just happy that I can, going back watching this first time in like 10 years, I think I've watched this movie, where I can recognize that Brandon Routh really was good.
Yeah. And
I feel bad about that. And actually being able to appreciate Kevin Spacey's performance in this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like those will be my takeaways. Whether or not, I fully form an opinion at some point about this. I mean, every time I sit down to watch a movie for our thing, my kids immediately think I'm going to be riffing it. So it's like I have no joy anymore.
I wonder if there is a riff tracks for Superman Returns.
I don't doubt that there is. I know that like most film critiques online that actually are serious about doing it and not making it a something have definitely done it or talked about it. So
it's actually got about like I want to say is 71 or 75% on Rotten Tomato.
Okay, and it's again, I think it's. I think realistically, it's a dull movie. It's just a boring. And that's his biggest crime. I think it's dull.
Yeah. Well, once you get past like the first half of the movie, the back half is quite a bit of a slog.
Yeah, and I don't even know why the hell Kal Penn even got like solo billing on his thing. No lines, and I understand he had just come off of Harold and Kumar.
He had about maybe 3, maybe 4 lines.
They had to have been under his breath, though. They weren't anything that moved the plot at all or did anything. Like, but I'm like, I understand. I recognize Kal Penn, and I'm sure it was great for him to get to kick Superman in the balls at some point. But after Lex shivs him with kryptonite, but it's like, oh man, this is.
Yeah, this movie was 2 years after Harold and Kumar, so he's kind of riding high at that point.
Yeah, and within about a year of probably doing Harold and Kumar go to Guantanamo Bay. So
yeah, that was 2008, and then there was Harold and Kumar Christmas in 2011.
Yeah, and then he did that series Archon House, and then left to go work in the Obama White House. So it's the career of Kal Penn, but yeah. So that's all I have to say about Superman Returns. So we want to know what your thoughts are on Superman Returns. Leave a polite comment below. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. We do this every week except for next week. Next week is Thanksgiving. It is going to be insanely busy for, at least I know in my household, with the parent-teacher conferences and the prepping for Thanksgiving and just, all the other things I have to do. So we are going to take next week off. And Mike, I'm calling an audible here. Okay. Let me know what you think about it, because you can put the veto now in front of all our fine viewers here.
Great. Thanks a lot.
We have decided to do Superman 2 for our final look at Superman. Here's my thought, because we have the extra week. We do them both. 2 and 2, the Donner cut.
Interesting.
You think we could do that? I think we could do that. I have to see if I still have my copy of the Donner cut that I loaned to a coworker years ago. I'm fairly certain I got it back, but
it should be in the box of steel, right?
It was in the box of steel, yes. So you own it. I loaned mine to a coworker, and I know I got it back, but I have no idea if I know where it is. So hopefully it's streaming somewhere.
I imagine it would be on HBO Max, because they've all been on HBO Max.
Well, Superman 2 is on. The Lester cut is on there, but I'll figure it out.
I'll look it up now.
Oh, nice, excellent. But yeah, no, I think it's worth it, because technically speaking, Superman 2 is some people's favorite Superman movie. There are heavy elements of Superman 2 in that Superman Returns. And technically speaking, it's also is kind of the precursor to the Snyder Cut, if you will.
No, HBO Max does not have the Donner Cut.
Whore. All right. Well, I'm sure I've got my copy around here somewhere. I'll find it. So, anywho. All right, so we are going to come back and we're going to discuss both cuts of Superman 2. Oh, that's going to be enjoyable. So anyway,
compare and contrast.
Yes, exactly. So, hey, thank you so much for joining us. Mike and I also host a little podcast called Geek Salad. You can check that out wherever you get your podcasts, your Spotify. iTunes, Google Podcasts. We are there. Also, you can follow us on the socials. We are still on Twitter at Geek Salad Radio. We did set up a Mastodon account, and I'll be goddamned if I can figure out how to use it, at Geek Salad Radio on Mastodon. We're also on Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast as well, and check out our store on TeePublic, keyword Geek Salad Podcast, if you are looking for that. Again, feel free to share this content. Let your friends know that there are these two nerds talking about movies, especially if you're a fan of Superman, and you want to get more about that. We've been doing this for like 4 years now. So anyway, until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth and be nerdful. We will talk to you later.